Morning everybody, this is Josh over at Silver Arrow Service. Today we're working on this 2005 Ford Expedition. Customer complaint was grinding noise when coming to a stop. Upon disassembly of the front brakes, we were able to determine that the inside pad of the front brakes had become metal to metal on the rotor. The outside pad actually has plenty of life, so that was kind of an indication that there was something going on. It wasn't just a lack of maintenance. And upon looking closer, you can see that there is two caliper slides on each one. This one's nice and free. We've actually already gone ahead and gotten this one out, but this one was seized in here, kind of like this one. You can see how this one moves nice and free, and this one is seized solid. So what we're going to do today is we're going to go ahead, we've had it soaking in PB plaster overnight. We're going to go ahead and heat this up nice and hot, and then we are going to very slowly work this slide out. After the slide is out, we will use our grinder tool to clean the slide, and then we're going to use a neat little trick with a drill bit to go ahead and drill out all the corrosion and everything on the inside. Then we'll put a nice coating of grease, put new boots, and that should take care of this problem without having to spend probably about $200 on a new caliper. We're just using a little MAPP gas torch. We're going to sit here, probably apply this heat for 5 to 10 minutes, and then we'll use a pair of channel locks and see if we can get it to slowly start moving for us. Got it out, you want to make sure that you clean all the corrosion out of the inside of the slide. You can take a file like what Chris was using and kind of go in there, but that's going to kind of take forever. So what I like to do is I like to get a drill bit that's just about the same width as this, and then you just kind of run it in and out. I'm going to clean out any of that old debris. You can see on the end of the drill bit now all the old grease and all the stuff that was in there. And then if we actually take the slide that we already cleaned up, you'll see that it just slides right in nice and clean. So now that we got that all done, we'll finish cleaning up this slide now. We're going to take it over to the wire wheel. We'll clean that all up, and then we actually got new boots. So there's supposed to be a rubber boot that you can see locks right on this shoulder, and then it actually locks on the shoulder of the brake caliper bracket as well. That's typically what causes these to seize, is if you have a little tear or those boots aren't on there correctly, it will allow dirt and corrosion to get in there, and then that's what actually causes these to seize up. So now that we got that all cleaned up, I'm going to turn it over to Chris. He's going to go ahead, put the new boots on, make sure there's plenty of grease on these slides, and then he'll reassemble the brakes, and this client will be all set to go.
So after you get everything cleaned up, one of the things I like to do is take some brake clean, because it does dry very quickly when it's slightly warm out, or even just in general, and to clean out any lube, any grease, or anything else, or dirt or debris that's in these holes. I always have to do it over a trash can as well. So now we have a nice smooth clean surface for our grease to go on now. So what I'm doing next is I'm cleaning up the groove where the rubber boot sits in, just so it has a good seal and it'll sit down perfectly. So our next step is going to be to clean up all in here where the old pad hardware used to be, just so our new pad hardware fits flush and smooth. You can use a wire brush, but I prefer to use compressed air on a whiz wheel because it's much easier and much more efficient. So we just finished cleaning it up. Unless you want to sit there for like 30 minutes, you're never going to get it completely perfect. So I'm happy with it at the moment. We'll get all our new hardware, put it on, make sure everything fits. If it doesn't fit smoothly, obviously we'll go back and clean it up more so it does. There we go. So the easiest way to get new boots on, you throw a little grease on this end as you just saw, slide the boot over, grease up this side, and then when you push it down, you might have to give it a little work, but it should pop on. And there we go. Then just pull this top side down. I have grease on my finger, so I might need a screwdriver. Yep. Pull your slide out. Make sure you grease up your slide. You don't want to do too much because it'll blow the boot out, but if you don't do enough, it will allow the slide to seize again. So I just like to do a nice even coating around the whole thing. Push it right back down and give it a little twist. And it's all set. So you just gotta do the same thing again for this one and the same thing again on these two. And here we have our caliper bracket with two fresh slides that move very freely. So when it comes to your pad hardware on your caliper bracket, some manufacturers like to make the tension on these very high so that they won't come off or move. So sometimes you have to use a little bit of extra force, but make sure you do not bend them because then it will make the pad wear unevenly. So you just gotta tap this one on in this case. Make sure the other side's seated. And there we go. Run nice and smooth. So not everyone does this, but I always like to do it. So your rotor sits on this surface onto here. And because we're putting a new rotor on the car, I always like to make sure that any major rust ridges on this surface are taken away so it'll sit completely flush and won't wobble at all. So you just take a wire brush and just clean up all in here between there, all the outside. You don't have to go till it's shiny and new, but you want to make sure you can rub your finger across it and you don't feel anything major sticking out. So we just put our rotor on with our nice clean surface, and we're gonna put our caliper bracket on. You always wanna make sure you don't get your left and rights confused. Most cars aren't different, it's just a habit of mine. So now we're gonna come through, we got our pad bracket on, we got our pads, and you wanna put grease everywhere the pads are gonna slide on our pad hardware right here. So we're gonna do our top side, our side right here, and we're just gonna go through and do all of them. You don't want to go too crazy with this because the last thing you want to do is have any of your grease go on your friction material, because then it'll make the friction material less effective. We're going to take our pad and slide it in. Do the same thing on our back side. So now that we got our pads on, we're going to take our brake caliper itself. You always want to make sure your pistons are already seated in. We did this yesterday, so I can't show you, but you can go to like any auto parts store and get a caliper compressor, and it's fairly simple. We're going to take some grease, put it on here, some on this side, and then a little bit on these prongs where it's going to contact the pad. I'm going to do this just to make sure that if anything does shift a little bit, it's not going to squeak or cause any damage. You're going to take your caliper, slide it right over your pads, and then put your top caliper bolts in. Now all we have to do is tighten everything down snug and then look up our torque specs and torque everything in a spec, and then we just put the wheel on. Now that we've got our wheel on, we just got to come down and make sure we torque our wheel, and we're all set. Thank you for watching, guys. This has been Chris and Josh at Silver Arrow Service. If you would like to have your car serviced, feel free to contact us at 603-566-2075 or on the web at silverarrowservice.com. Thank you.